Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm going to be doing a wrap up of all the books that I've read over the last week. I'm going to be doing it slightly differently this week, just as an experiment. So although I will be reviewing all of the books I've read, you will have me in different clothes and at different times of the week, because I'm going to be wrapping up the books as I finish them, because I find that my thoughts are fresh in my head and what I want to say is fresh. And I just find that it takes less time, so I'm going to see how that goes. So I have just finished my first book of the week, which is Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. Now this I picked up in a secondhand bookshop, but I think it's actually an ARC with the cover normally looking like this. I've never read any of Curtis Sittenfeld, although I do own another one of her books called Prep, which I'm looking forward to reading. What enticed me with this one is that it's a Pride and Prejudice modern retelling. It's part of a modern retelling series. I think you had Val McDermid and Alexander McCall Smith and another writer as well rewrote famous classics, and this is Curtis Sittenfeld's Pride and Prejudice. I love Pride and Prejudice, I love the story, and I loved reading it for the first time last year. And so I was intrigued but a bit nervous going into this, because obviously it's such an important book in terms of its characters and the storyline. It's so well known. I wondered how Curtis could do it, and it turns out it was very readable. I'd only a week ago, my daughter's headmistress said to me, "Oh, I've just read Eligible and it was really good and it was really fun and a really nice read, and you should definitely read it." And I was like, okay, well, I've got it on my list anyway for next month. It's because it's 514 pages. It ticks all the boxes for this month's Shelf Slam, and so I picked it up, and she was right. It was very readable, and it was just one of those fun reads. It was very light, very easy reading. You've got all of the same characters. You've got the Bennett sisters, you've got their parents who live in Cincinnati. They're, sort of going bankrupt because they've gone through all their money. Mrs. Bennett is just interested in marrying off the daughters. The daughters are a different age to Jane Austen's because of the time we live in. So the eldest Jane in this is just approaching 40. Lizzie is sort of 38, and Kitty and Lydia are sort of 23, 24, I think. And I really enjoyed that dynamic in it. I really enjoyed finding out what, the Bennett sisters in Curtis Sittenfeld's head would have been doing with themselves. And I really enjoyed it. The things that meant I couldn't give it more than 3 stars are 2 really. Firstly, I didn't feel any chemistry between Darcy and Lizzie, and I really wanted to. I wanted to feel chemistry there, and I didn't. So that is the first thing. And the second thing was both a positive and a negative. On the positive side, Curtis has inserted a lot of diversity into this book. You've got transgender characters, you've got an asexual character, and then you've got really interesting modern day elements like artificial insemination and technology companies, and the use of social media and the CrossFit phenomenon. And so you've got some really good things in there. But in terms of the sort of diverse characters, I felt like maybe she was trying to sort of push them into the roles and they didn't quite gel or feel right. I think she maybe tried to push too many in. However, I can see where she came up with the thought process because of various personality traits that we see in the Bennett sisters. I can see why she has picked some of these things, but sometimes it just felt like it was like, and another thing, and it didn't sort of flow and feel quite right. I had real issues with Mrs. Bennett's thoughts, her racist undertones, and her lack of compassion for those different to herself, and that made me feel uncomfortable. But I wonder if I was meant to feel uncomfortable with that, and possibly how she might have been in modern day. But overall, it was a really good read. It was a fast read. I really enjoyed it, and so I gave this one 3 stars. Hi guys, so I've just finished my second book for the week, and that is Revenger by Alistair Reynolds. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for ages. It's a science fiction story, and I was told that it was very much sort of a space opera, space sort of adventure type story, and I was really excited to sort of get stuck in. It was over 400 pages, so hit my shelf slam target for February, and so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I thought of it. So we're following Adriana and Fura Ness. They're 2 young girls, sort of 17, 18, and they want to go on adventure. They want to try and earn some money to help their father, who's become poverty stricken, or certainly come across hard times. And Adriana leads Ness into an adventure on a ship with a Captain Rackamore, and she's not sure to begin with, and we're hearing it from Fura's point of view. And so although we are hearing about her and her sister, it's all from Fura's point of view. And they go on this adventure, and basically in this world, these sort of adventurers and these people on these ships go out to different planets that sort of open at different times, and they have people that work out when these sort of gateways to these worlds are going to open, and you get a certain amount of time, and people go on to them and sort of take or scavenge old relics and things that are from that world, and then they can sell them depending on how much they're worth and how rare they are. And both Adriana and Fura are of an age where they can potentially, if they've got the adeptness to read these bones, which are like skulls that they put on their face, and they can use these as a way of sort of communicating with other ships and listening into other people's conversations, and that part of it seemed quite magical. And it's just sort of a story about something happens, Fura has to sort of come into her own and has to go and rescue somebody, and I really enjoyed the adventure style of this. The 2 big things for me, well, not big, but the 2 things for me that I struggled with is, one, I thought that this world and this universe that had been created was really, really potentially interesting, but unfortunately I just felt like I was getting lost all the time. I couldn't work out what exactly was going on, and I didn't feel like things were explained enough for me personally. Now, I know someone that probably reads more science fiction would probably be like, they could read into things and they would be able to work out exactly what was being said, but in some of the instances here I needed things to be explained a little bit more, so I did feel like I was a little bit lost as to what was going on. And the other thing was that it was a bit predictable. I mean, we could work out what was going to happen. It was quite obvious certain things were going to turn out to be the case. So the few twists I'd sort of guessed before they happened. But other than that, it was I read it in about 2 days. It was compulsive enough that I wanted to pick it up. I really enjoyed it. It was fast paced. So it was generally just quite a nice read. And so I gave this one 3 stars. Hi guys, so today's been a bit of a reading frenzy. I not only finished Revenger, but I have now just finished Of Sands and Malice Made by Bradley Bolio. Now this is a short book, novella. It's about 226 pages long, and the reason I picked this one up is because I was recently sent Blood Upon the Sand by Bradley Bolio, which was book 2, which is the sequel to book 1, which was 12 Kings. And so I thought, well, I had the interim novella, I should really read that first. So I have now read this and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was a really good way actually of getting back into the story and finding out more about Cedar as a character. She's our main character in 12 Kings, and I'll link down below the review I did of 12 Kings when I read it so that you can find out a bit more about book 1. But this was really good for me because I was struggling. It's been a while since I'd read 12 Kings. I was struggling to remember the world and everything in it. it and sort of how it all happened, and this really helped me to sort of get back in and to start feeling really excited to read the next book. So I really enjoyed this. I'm not normally a novella lover. I find novellas don't give you enough, but actually this was really good. The whole book was sort of in 3 parts, but it was all following the same story. It was sort of 3 big chapters really, and it had a beginning and a middle and an end, and I like that about a novella. I like it when you get a proper story, and it reminded me of things that had been happening in the first book, so I'm really pleased that I read this. So now I'm going to be moving on to Blood Upon the Sand, and this is about 660 pages, so we'll definitely meet the challenges for reading books over 400 pages with Shelf Slam, so I'll get back to you when I finish this one. Hi everyone, so I'm now sitting in front of my new bookshelves and my new little wall sticker, which I'm really happy with, and I really love that it says "and they lived happily ever after." Let me show you if I can. There's one bookshelf that side and one on this side, and then I've got one over the other side of the room. So anyway, the book I want to talk about now is Billy and Me by Giovanna Fletcher. I listened to this on audiobook via the Audible app, and I was just in the mood for something easy to listen to on my way to work and back, and it was just a really fun, enjoyable read. It's what would be classed as chick lit, I suppose, and I really wanted to read Giovanna Fletcher's books before, and I own, I think, most of them, but I just never got round to it. And she's got a new book coming out soon called Happy Mum, Happy Baby, which is a non-fiction story about her experience of motherhood and her family, and it's one that I'm really interested in reading, so I thought I would read some of her other books first. This is the story of Sophie May. She lives in a very small village in England. She works in a tea room. She's worked there for a number of years with the sort of quirky 60-plus-year-old owner of the tea room. She's happy there. She's gone straight from school there for reasons that I won't tell you in case it spoils the sort of the plot of the story for you. But she loves working there. She loves the baking. She loves the interaction with the customers. And then one day they find out that this big remake of Pride and Prejudice is going to be filmed in the village. And she meets the dashing young lead, and they form a relationship, and this is sort of their story and the pressures of being in the spotlight and being celebrity, and what happens when you don't want that, and how it's very difficult when you're not in the industry to understand things, and how things can get tainted when you are in the industry. You sort of tell yourself that things are okay when perhaps they're not, because you feel like everyone's doing them. And I really enjoyed the sort of themes in this and the things that Giovanna was hinting at and was looking into. And I wonder if I ever got the chance to ask her, I wonder if any of it is not autobiographical, but sometimes maybe things that she might have experienced being in the spotlight herself, and obviously because her husband is in a band, and whether she's experienced certain things that happen in this, and the need to sort of find your own place and not just be in the shadow of someone else. And she's obviously not, because she's a very well-known author. But yeah, I did enjoy it. It was a very fast read. I listened to it within a day. And yeah, if you want something quite light, it's not going out of its way to make anything spectacular. You know, it's not really breaking the box in terms of its themes, but it was really good and enjoyable and well worth a read. So I gave it 3 stars. Okay, so the final book that I've read this week, and that is Blood Upon the Sands by Bradley Beaulieu. This is the sequel to 12 Kings of Sharakai, and also comes after the novella, which I have talked about in this video previously. And I was really keen to get back to this world. I don't tell you too much about this because it will spoil the first book, but the story is set in a fantasy world which has magic of kings who have been granted magic from the gods. There's 12 kings with different abilities, and there are tribes and factions trying to overthrow them, and it's set in this kind of Moroccan Arabic type country or world where the sands are like seas and there's boats that sail over these sands, which I think is brilliant. And there's loads of sort of intrigue going on, but our main character, and I think it's Chada, how you pronounce it, is in the first book she is just trying to work out what is going on, what happened to her mother, what her mother was working towards, her background. She doesn't know much about her life, and we're flitting between different timelines. I'll link down below the review I did of 12 Kings when I read it. I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed this one. It was a great continuation. I gave it 4 stars, and there's 2 reasons why I couldn't give it higher than that. The first one is I really struggled to remember everything that had happened in the previous book. This is one of those stories where there is lots of different characters, lots of different threads, and people all working towards different things and with different goals, and there's a lot of names in there, and I really kind of wish there had been a plot catch-up, synopsis, or some sort of recap, and sometimes I can find that online, but here there was no recap I could find. So if Bradley hadn't wanted to include it in the book, I kind of wish he'd put like a recap on his website so that people could sort of go and find out and just recap and refresh their thoughts. And this book does include maps, which I know was something that a lot of people wanted and had mentioned from the first book, that they would have quite liked to have the maps, and I liked the maps, but what I would have preferred was a list of the characters. The characters have all got very unusual names. We've got people like Yundris and Nalame and Emry and Melek, and lots of different names in there and lots of characters, and I would have liked a character list like the players. I don't think it was necessarily needed in book 1 because we were just starting to learn who they were, but I think by the time we get to book 2 it's not going to be a spoiler to have a list of the main characters who appear in the book, and I really think if nothing else that would have helped me to connect and remember who everybody was and what had happened. So I definitely think if you haven't started this series yet, that I think it is important or it is beneficial to read the first and the second book close together so that you can keep going with your momentum of what you've learned in the story, because leaving it nearly a year has made it harder for me to remember going back in. So that was one thing. And then I really enjoyed the ending, and obviously this is going to be a longer series, whether it's going to be a trilogy or longer I don't know, but the action at the end was, after all this big build up, it's sort of a 660 odd page book. After the big build up, I felt a little bit deflated at the end. I didn't feel like there was, it was as hard as we'd expected to do what was needed to be done. I don't want to say what it is because it'll spoil it, but it felt like it was a lot easier than we'd thought. So I enjoyed it. I definitely recommend this series. I mean, it's a really great fantasy series. It's so evocative. I mean, often I'm reading it and I can smell the spices and I can taste the food and I can just be there. I can imagine this place and I love the feel of it. I just wish that in this one there had been a bit of a, recap of the plot, or it was available somewhere, and that there had been like a cast list, and that the ending had had a bit more oomph. But other than that, really great, and I'm definitely going to be continuing. So I gave this one 4 stars. So that is it for this week. That's all the books I've read. I've had a really great reading week. I've really pushed myself this week to pick up books and to just get immersed in these larger books, and I'm really pleased I have. So I'll get back to you next week on the books that I've read next week. Anyway, I hope you've all had a good week, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye for now, BookTube.